It seems like every single day brings a new twist with this team. A new rumor explodes, and, honestly, Steelers fans are tired of waiting without knowing what's going to happen. But at the same time, you can feel that something big is building in Pittsburgh, and if it finally comes to fruition, the whole atmosphere around the team could change rapidly. Before we get into the details, be sure to click the like button and leave your opinion in the comments. And if you're a true Steelers fan, comment, "Go Steelers!" Tom Pelissero just said the quiet part out loud. And if you're a Steelers fan paying attention to this Aaron Rodgers situation, you probably felt the temperature rise immediately after hearing it. According to Pelissero, the patience inside the Pittsburgh Steelers organization is starting to wear thin while they continue waiting for Aaron Rodgers to finally make a decision about his future. That is the biggest development surrounding this saga right now, because for the first time, people connected closely to the organization are beginning to publicly hint that there could actually be a limit to how long Pittsburgh is willing to sit around and wait. And what makes this even more interesting is that this report lines up almost perfectly with what Jerry Dulac had already reported earlier, where he explained that the Steelers had shown saint-like patience throughout this entire process, but that the organization might not continue feeling comfortable if Rodgers still hasn't committed by the beginning of organized team activities. That is not random speculation from national media people trying to generate headlines. These are reporters with legitimate connections to the Steelers organization. And when two insiders begin echoing the same message publicly, it usually means those conversations are happening behind the scenes inside the building. The fascinating part about all of this is that Pittsburgh clearly still wants Rodgers. There is absolutely no doubt about that. If the Steelers truly believed this relationship was dead, they would have already pivoted aggressively toward another plan. Instead, everything coming from the organization suggests they still believe Rodgers eventually ends up in Pittsburgh. The issue now is timing. The Steelers are trying to balance two competing realities. On one side, they believe Aaron Rodgers gives them the best chance to compete immediately. On the other side, they cannot allow the uncertainty to drag deep into the offseason and potentially disrupt preparation for 2026. That is why this next phase becomes critical. OTAs suddenly matter a lot more than people originally expected. Earlier in the offseason, many fans believed Pittsburgh would simply wait indefinitely because Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. But now, there's a growing feeling that mandatory minicamp could become the real line in the sand. Once every other player on the roster is required to report, it becomes much harder for the organization to justify waiting endlessly for one player, even if that player is a future Hall of Fame quarterback. Still, the Steelers themselves are sending mixed signals because while the front office appears eager to finalize the situation, key voices inside the locker room do not seem worried at all. Cam Hayward basically told everybody to relax. He openly defended Rodgers by saying the veteran quarterback knows how to prepare his body better than anyone, and that he has never been someone obsessed with participating in every stage of the offseason program. That comment from Hayward is incredibly important because Cam is not just another player. He is one of the most respected leaders in the entire organization. When Cam Hayward publicly says there is no reason to panic, that tells you the locker room likely already expects Rodgers to arrive eventually. And honestly, if you step back and analyze Rodgers' personality over the last several years, the delay itself should not surprise anyone. Aaron Rodgers has always operated differently than most quarterbacks. He does not like rigid off-season structures. He does not enjoy media pressure. He prefers flexibility and control over his own schedule. The longer this process drags, the more it feels like Rodgers is trying to keep every option available to him until the very last moment, before a decision absolutely has to be made. What also stands out is that money reportedly is not the problem. According to Pelissero, The contract framework is expected to be simple, likely a one-year deal with a salary beginning somewhere in the 20s. That completely changes the conversation, because if financial disagreements are not slowing things down, then this entire situation becomes about commitment and timing rather than negotiation. Rodgers has already earned hundreds of millions during his NFL career. At this stage, this is about lifestyle, preparation, legacy, and deciding whether he truly wants to fully dive back into another NFL season. The Steelers, meanwhile, are trying to avoid a repeat of prolonged uncertainty. They already spent a significant amount of time restructuring the quarterback room, bringing in younger developmental talent while also trying to remain competitive immediately. The presence of Will Howard and Drew Aller changes the dynamic because the coaching staff wants valuable reps available for those younger quarterbacks during off-season practices. Mike McCarthy even hinted that there are benefits to Rodgers not being there during this stage because it allows more developmental focus on the younger players. That statement from McCarthy was another major clue. If the Steelers were truly frustrated beyond repair, you would not hear the head coach calmly explaining the advantages of Rodgers missing off-season work. Instead, McCarthy sounded like someone who already understands how this process is likely going to unfold. It almost feels like the organization has quietly accepted that Rodgers will arrive on his own timeline and that they simply need to survive the waiting game without allowing frustration to boil over publicly. At the same time, fans absolutely have a reason to feel exhausted by the saga. This is now another off-season dominated by constant Rodgers speculation. Every week brings another report, another deadline, another reaction from insiders, and another debate about whether Pittsburgh should continue waiting. Steelers fans are used to stability at quarterback. For years, Ben Roethlisberger eliminated these types of off-season dramas because everyone always knew who the leader of the offense would be. Now the organization finds itself trapped in yearly uncertainty while trying to bridge the gap between eras. And while the Rodgers situation remains the headline, another fascinating storyline is beginning to quietly build involving T.J. Watt and the future of the Steelers' pass rush. Jeremy Fowler's report suggesting some around the league believe Pittsburgh could eventually consider trading Watt after the season immediately grabbed attention because the idea almost feels unthinkable for many fans. T.J. Watt is not just an elite player. He represents the identity of Steelers football. He represents toughness, star power, consistency, and defensive dominance. But the financial reality of the NFL eventually forces difficult conversations. Nick Herbig's emergence changes the long-term picture significantly. Pittsburgh now has another young edge rusher showing real promise, and if Herbig continues developing into a legitimate high-level starter, the organization eventually has to decide how many massive contracts it can realistically commit to one position group. The more likely scenario still feels like Alex Highsmith eventually becoming the odd man out, rather than Watt. Highsmith entering a potential contract year while approaching age 30 creates a logical point where Pittsburgh could maximize value in a trade before physical regression begins. That route would also create far less dead cap damage compared to moving Watt. But the possibility of Watt eventually being moved cannot be dismissed entirely anymore, especially if production declines while Herbig explodes into a star. That is the uncomfortable reality the Steelers may eventually have to confront. Watt turns 32 this season, and while elite pass rushers can remain productive into their 30s, NFL front offices are constantly evaluating future value versus financial commitment. Then there's the preseason schedule itself, which suddenly looks loaded with emotional storylines. Mike McCarthy, potentially coaching against Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, potentially standing on the opposite sideline from both the Packers and Jets organizations that defined huge portions of his career. Even if Rodgers barely plays in preseason action, The atmosphere around those games will be intense because of the symbolism attached to them. And maybe the most intriguing football storyline of all is the developing battle between Will Howard and Drew Aller. Neither quarterback has taken an NFL preseason snap yet, which means Steelers fans are finally going to get a real look at the organization's developmental future at the position. Even if Rodgers becomes the starter, everybody understands Pittsburgh still needs a long-term answer eventually. The preseason could provide the first meaningful clues about whether Howard or Aller has the potential to become that guy someday. So now, the pressure continues building around this entire offseason. Rodgers still has not officially committed. The Steelers continue walking a fine line between patience and frustration. Veterans inside the locker room remain calm publicly. National insiders keep hinting that deadlines are approaching, and fans are left trying to figure out whether this gamble is ultimately going to end with Pittsburgh finding its next quarterback solution or dealing with another off-season filled with uncertainty and drama. What do you think Steelers Nation has to say about all of this? That's going to do it for today's Steelers Update. But this Aaron Rodgers situation is far from over. And you already know we'll keep bringing you every major development the second it happens. So make sure you subscribe, leave a like on the video, and turn on notifications so you never miss any breaking Steelers news. And don't go anywhere. Click the video that's on your screen right now, because the latest Steelers updates and rumors are always right here.